Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar in the form of a panel discussion that we are organizing today. We are very pleased to see all of you on our webinar today, and also, as you can see, it's three wonderful ladies who believes in this topic of developing a resilience mindset to get through challenges ahead. We know many of us have been on lockdown, home confinement, or some of us even office spaces. We have been working for a longer time, and this suddenly develop some sort of challenges mentally, and even that then leads to some physical challenges in terms of moving around and being in a smaller space. So during our webinar today, we will actually be going through and talking about this. Just some guidelines there. You notice that all the participants, your mic is off, your video is off. Just you want to make sure that we, in terms of the webinar flow, that it will have a minimal interruption. However, you can go to the chat box, write comments along the way. You could in fact go to the Q&A box and write questions. We'll be taking the questions. And in fact, before we actually get started, we'll also ask you to do a small activity. I would like to introduce our panelists today. This is done in partnership with Institute for Wellness Education. And our panelists, we have Avalisha, Master of Counseling and co-founder and counselor at Institute of Wellness Education. So I open to Lish just to say a few words of introduction, a few words to the all the attendees.
Hello everyone, it's really lovely to see everyone on this platform and also on Facebook Live. So once again, thank you Mark, thank you Afi for this opportunity, because we love talking about wellness. We love talking about mindfulness and the power of our mind, because we know that no matter what the hardship that we face in our life, there's nothing that we can't overcome through the help of our mindset and through the power of our mindset. So actually I'm very, very honored and also very happy that we got this opportunity to talk about how you can change your mindset in order to change the situation or change what's going around you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Lish. And our next panelist is Shazina Ahmad Naseem. Shazina is a specialist in the area of psychologist, and she's right now the assistant psychologist at the Institute for Wellness Education. Shazina, would you like to share 3 words of opening inspiration?
I would also like to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope we all get benefit from this webinar today. Webinar we are having today, and I hope we get educated and more aware throughout this session. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And our third panelist is Zunina Habib. And she's a Nirvana fitness instructor and also the co-founder and creative director at Institute for Wellness Education. And she's a firm believer in the topic of wellness. So Zuni, over to you to say a few words of inspiration.
Hi everyone, it's very, very nice to meet you. It's very great that we have this opportunity to meet everyone from all across the world through this session. And I hope that we will keep having more conversations on the topic of mental health and well-being throughout these different forms of platforms. Thank you so much, Afi, for this opportunity for us to have this conversation with everyone who we are connected with and to speak out our mind. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Now I would like to ask our participants, so before we get started, I have a question for all of you. So probably some of you have been working from home. Some of you, were maybe not too busy. Sometimes when you're at home, if you're not too busy, also it then perhaps leads to, different challenges. So the question is, how are you feeling today, right now, on this webinar? If you could go to the chat box and write your response. How are you feeling today at this moment of time? I know I'm feeling excited because we know we're going to enlighten you with knowledge you probably already know, but perhaps some refreshing ideas. So let's take a moment, go to the chat box and write how you're feeling. And if you're feeling depressed, not well, write it down. It will probably help you to get through some sort during this panel discussion. So let's take a moment. Okay, I can see we have comments as great. Yeah. Anxious about the recovery of the hotel industry, excited. Yeah. And there's this tip I want to give to everybody. Even if you're on the virtual, don't feel shy to say what you want to say. I was telling the other day on the webinar, even if they don't like what we are saying, just tell it to us. It's okay. Because in the virtual space, sometimes we tend to stay a bit quiet, and there are ways you can get this interactive. So I got 3. So let's have more coming. How are you feeling today? Very good. Really excited to hear the panelists' thoughts, Zimyan. Very good. Yeah. So keep those messages coming as we get started. So I would like now to obviously and also for the participants, the 3 topics that we really would like to cover today around the topic of mental health challenges that we encounter. Obviously, this whole crisis is something that has taken a whole different angle of the way we think. So we're going to be touch basing on that, and also developing a coping mindset. How can we cope with the times that we go through, and practicing gratitude, and that is obviously one form of living in a healthy mental mindset or mental life. So I would like actually to just to open and start with Shazina. If you could just talk about again, what do you hear about the mental health challenges at the workplace right now? What do you hear from the community? Just a sort of a starting overview.
Okay, so as we know that millions of people around the world have lost their jobs during this coronavirus crisis, and it is in a record-breaking number that far surpasses the previous numbers. And actually, a professor in counseling psychology described the situation as a global pandemic of unemployment, or a crisis within a crisis. So many found themselves without work, either laid off with some form of termination benefit or payment, or asked to take indefinite leave, or just outright fired. So any situation that alters a person's living condition has an impact on his or her mental health. And this situation is doubly challenging because it's all over the place. We are overly exposed, and it's virtually inescapable. We are exposed to the television and what's going on in the social media. So it also presents a psychological challenge for people who are already living with a mental health issue.
Yeah, it's true. And I like how you put it together. It is so true. I think on top of the health pandemic, it came a time when the world is in such a huge rate of unemployment, starting from the world's most developed economies. So obviously this will create a lot of mental health issues, because not knowing, first of all, short term what's going to happen, and long term, I think the list could be even longer. Go to Leash. If you could share about what you hear from the community in terms of how are they currently coping with these challenges that they're facing.
Sure. So by looking at the comments that we got so far, and also the participants' responses, and by being a former monitor at MRC, and also a counselor, I hear a lot of anxiousness. A lot of people feel concerned and also anxious and downright sad as well. So because of the situation which is happening. So my thinking on that is because our thoughts are very powerful. So whatever we are feeling right now, even if we are feeling sad, even if we are feeling, some of us here are very excited. So whatever feeling that you're feeling is actually backed by our thoughts. So our thoughts are actually very powerful. It actually leads to these emotions, and these emotions actually lead into how you behave. So what usually happens is we let our environment overpower us. So what is happening around us, we let it overpower us. and we actually come up with all of these negative thoughts in our mind, such as I'm a failure, this is hopeless, or this that I am helpless in this situation. So there's something called as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you believe that you are hopeless, if you believe you are helpless, you actually wouldn't do anything in order to find these opportunities. So as a result, you end up actually focusing on these issues as well. So usually when there's a failure happening, or when you get fired from your job, or you get laid off from your job, you feel like I am a failure, or it's me, or it's my issue. So rather than, don't let the failure define what's happening around you. So it's just a bad situation, just a stressful event. So how you can actually cope through it is thinking about your strengths, thinking about focusing on your inner abilities, and how can you actually overcome it. And one more thing that we can do is accepting these scenarios, accepting that this is a difficult situation. So once you come to acceptance to this scenario, you actually start moving on towards growth as well. So what usually we say, this solution comes disguised as problems, isn't it? So this could be, of course it's a difficult time, but even with difficult times, we need to cater our mind, or we need to change our mindset towards a positive growth.
Yeah, very good open remark there, because how we feel about ourselves at this time is obviously how what we are going to get. I mean, we have a choice either to try to cope, or do our best to cope, or just let things go. And I'm sure there has been times where people let it go, and then it leads to bigger challenges. So I'm sure in your next part you will address how we can handle that. And one of the things that I'm glad that we included in our topic today is about practicing gratitude. So Zuni, if you'd like to share some opening remark about how often people do practice this gratitude, of feeling grateful of what they have instead of what they don't have. What's your take on that one? And if you could enlighten an open remark on that topic.
Yeah, I love talking about being grateful, or a gratitude mindset, because when you wake up every day, we are given a clean slate every day to face the challenges that we are facing right now. So when we wake up with a grateful mind, we tend to, rather than look at the sad things or negative things that are happening in our life, we tend to appreciate the little things that are happening in our life that actually adds up. So when we look into these things, it helps us to be more self-aware. It leads to self-confidence. These little things can be just appreciating the breath, just waking up at home with our loved ones, those of us who have jobs, feeling grateful for those jobs, or those of us, if we have lost our jobs, we still have our skills, so that we can look further for more opportunities. So when you are grateful, we tend to attract more positive energy, which then leads us to things which would benefit for us, for our growth, and which should keep us going. So which I feel like is a very, very important thing, and especially while we are facing with a huge challenge right now, these things help us to heal and overcome, and look at the bright side of how we can go forward with our next step.
Yes, that's a good point, and I know that you have a grateful small activity that we will practice during this webinar. They will help us to understand how to practice gratitude, or feeling grateful at times. So I'd like to go back to Shazina and ask a question. You mentioned about, obviously, the number of unemployment rate is going high, not just Maldives, but all over the world. So what do you think are the major mental health issues that people are facing due to the pandemic, and specifically the lockdown?
Okay. So due to the lockdown, we are having to work from home. So regarding the effects of pandemic, research shows that the majority of employees say that they're dealing with some sort of mental health issues even right now. So many people are scared about their physical health. They worry about their family responsibilities, and some of them are finding it hard to face the new realities of social distancing and working remotely. And financial stresses are high among the employees because they're worried about losing their jobs or having less money or seeing a drop in their living standards. And because of the uncertainty that follows this crisis, the longer it takes, there will be a drop in the financial status. So those are some of the things that some of the mental health issues they're facing. I would also like to talk about, if it is okay with you, I would like to talk about the benefits of being employed. I would like to start off with that. What are the benefits? How does being employed benefit your mental health? What does work do to your mental health? So work provides a meaning and purpose. It also you also receive recognition for your contribution. Like if you do something good, you are appreciated by your employer, or you are encouraged by your coworkers, and it also gives a sense of accomplishment. It improves efficacy and self-confidence as well. Also, you have you feel connected to the community as a service provider or a contributor. And then of course there is financial security. So these factors contribute to a better mental health. So of course we can't neglect the fact that there are common workplace issues such as communication problems, discriminations, and harassments, but which may lead to a negative impact on mental health. But the relationship between unemployment and mental health, it's been extensively explored, and it shows that evidence that people who are unemployed manifest lower level of psychological well-being than their employed peers. So right now, if we look at the like last week in the mental health institution, they announced that mental health issues have gone up, has increased over like 3 times. It's increased. So of course there are issues with psychological issues with anxiety, depression, and so forth.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I was also watching the the press conference in one of the a couple of days ago, and yeah, it's quite alarming. And this is a topic we should actually proactively speak in organizations, in schools, in all aspects of our lives, because if we don't address it at the early stage, it could have some major consequences in the future, especially people not knowing how to cope with it. So this is why I would like to now ask a question regarding how can we develop that coping mindset? So to Alish, how much control do we have in diverting our mind towards happiness and to state of calm in the midst of this pandemic? We know it's challenging, it's difficult. So, how much control do we have?
Perfect. So I will first start off by actually what is happiness, or how are we actually defining our happiness. So what we usually do is we define happiness to our sustainable work environment, or we define happiness with our income source. But happiness is coming in many components. So happiness could be having a good physical health, a good mental health. Happiness could be having a good connection with your family, friends, good intimate relationships. Happiness could be connecting to the nature of the beauty, and also having a good spirituality or a religious background where you could actually cope with the adversities which is actually coming towards your way. So when we talk about coping, once again, we hear a lot of anxiety. We hear a lot of concerns regarding the level of anxiety in the community due to the pandemic, due to the loss of income, due to being separated from their family. So there's a lot of issues going on in that form as well. So what usually what people are feeling is they feel helpless, they feel hopeless. So once again, where are these feelings coming from? What's actually leading to these feelings should be explored. So once again, these feelings are coming from our thought, coming from our mindset. So once we start diverting our thoughts, once we start recognizing and also accepting our thoughts, we could actually change how you feel about it, or how you're emotional. We could come towards an emotional intelligence as well. So for example, if someone is coming to me and discussing about how hopeless they are, how helpless they are, I usually ask them, just try to discuss, try to figure out one thing which you are looking forward to. So what's the one good thing in your life? Why don't you give focus to that one thing as well? And also when it comes to unemployment, when it comes to losing your normal living, what I say is like during this time, so before when you're working, what is like the one thing that you couldn't do, the one thing you were always procrastinating, or one thing that you never had time? It could be getting a new training, it could be making better connections with your family. So by kind of not focusing on all the failures and not focusing only on the adversities, but focusing on the goodness around you. And I know when I say that as well, this is not as easily done as said, because it's hard. Everything around us is hard. We are separated from our parents. We can't visit our family in different islands. So it's a hard situation for all of us. But what is actually near you? It's kind of like grounding. So come to the terms with the present, what's happening right now, rather than being overly concerned about the past or overly concerned about the future. So for example, you could be promoted to a really high level, you could be trained, or you have really good skills, but then you get laid off. So instead of just focusing on being laid off, just give acknowledgement to yourself. You actually reached up to here. So instead of like what if, so instead of thinking about the past, or even instead of thinking about the future, bringing your mind towards the present living, what's actually you are getting out of right now, and also focusing on your inner strength as well, giving acceptance. But the main thing how to develop a coping mindset is giving acceptance. So once you accept the situation around you, you could actually commit towards a betterment, or commit towards a solution, or commit towards a future where you are not having all this negativity. So it's the one main thing is giving acceptance to your feelings.
Yes, I mean, this is great list that you shared. Specifically at the beginning, you mentioned about, one way to create that coping mindset is that we have to connect with, connect our happiness with, what's available, what's around us. So, for example, many of us, we're probably working from home. We also have our, our kids around and family around. In fact, today I was having another discussion like that with some of our HR professionals because of building a strategy for MAHRP, and it was so nice that we were having a conversation, and we had one female HR professional, and while she was on the call, her kid came and just sat on the lap, and we all laughed. We celebrated it. That's the sweetest thing, I think, working from home. And for us, it was so genuine to see that, right? And kids may not understand it. And I think that one way of also coping this mindset, some of us are saying, well, it's very challenging to work from home. Well, it's how we also communicated with the kids and getting them on board and see. So you get some great insights there in terms of how, we should, there's so many things that we can look around and link our happiness. So thank you, Lish, for that. I'd like to go back, because, once you create that coping mindset, I think to continuously develop that mindset, you need the sense of gratitude, or creating the attitude of gratitude. So I'd like to ask this question for Zuni. We all would agree, along with the health dangers of the pandemic, we're also facing a mental health crisis. But can we come out of it even stronger than before? And if so, what should we do to come out stronger?
Yes, of course, we can actually come out of this stronger. For example, look at us right now, right? From across the world, we are all connected here. Although we are physically apart, we are connected through our hearts. So this actually shows right here that there's hope, isn't it? Everyone coming here, listening, sharing, it shows that there's a lot of hope. If you look back, for example, we can see that this is not the first time we are facing a challenge, especially in the tourism industry, right? Those who are working in the tourism sector, you would see every day we are facing challenges. challenges of all sorts, right? Human-made, man-made, natural disasters, so many sorts of challenges that we are facing. However, we always find a creative way of dealing with these challenges. So again, of course, this is a huge challenge right now, what we are facing, something we have never thought of. However, we'll find a creative way of dealing with these challenges as well. For example, if we look at businesses, if we look at relationships, how we are communicating, overnight, we have changed our way of doing business. Overnight, we have changed how we communicate with our colleagues and how we communicate with our friends and family members as well. So of course, we will come out of it stronger than we were before. And also, this is like you and like Lish said, this is actually given us a good pause. Nature has actually given us a good pause because nature is healing as well, while nature is giving us time to reflect on us as well, of what maybe, for example, on our skills, on our relationships. It's a very good time for us to reflect back because we are seeing that nature is healing as well. If we have looked through news, we would see, for example, the canals in Venice, they are clearing up. If we look out at the balcony at night, even in Marlow City, we can see the stars at night as well. So it's actually showing a lot of good things as well. So while we are on the topic of reflection, I would like to give a little bit of activity. If you have a little piece of paper, please take out a little piece of paper and write it down, or you could use the chat box on the right as well, to your right, and you can share it here as well so that we can all learn from each other at the same time as well. So here you go. Please write down something in your body or in your health that you are grateful for, a knowledge that you are grateful for, maybe a skill. Write 3 things that make you feel happy this day.
Yeah, so the activity that you can see is that I just posted the question into all the attendees and panelists. You can see that what you're going to take a piece of paper or on your device, you're going to type what is something in your body health that you're grateful for, what knowledge are you grateful for, write 3 things that make you feel happy this day. So let's take a moment and write that down. And feel free to write also in the chat box your answer, so you can go and write those points down. Yeah. So the 3 questions are: what is something in your body health that you're grateful for? What knowledge are you grateful for? And what 3 things that make you feel this day? Good. So Zuni, taking into consideration that many of them perhaps already wrote that down, what would be your next thought for them?
I am grateful for everything, grateful for my mental health, grateful for the blessings. So if you look at all these answers, we're not even writing about material things here, right? We're talking about very, very little things, but things which give us a huge change in our life to keep us going. So this is very good. Thanks for sharing, guys. And I hope we will learn from each other as well.
Yeah, so I think the whole purpose of this exercise, if I recall, is that, at times we go through, really, tough times. I mean, I want to share a story here, if I may. And I've been, I'm in the hotel industry, and, our jobs are not easy. We're surrounded by, challenges every day, not just today, but every day. But there is this moment where every day I finish my morning meeting, and I would go from because the morning meeting happens in the restaurant area, and then I would go to the jetty, arrival jetty area, so which is a long jetty, like which you find mostly in islands or cities. Everywhere you have a jetty where the boats come alongside. I would look at that long jetty. I would look at the open sky. Some days it's raining, it's thundering, lightning. I would just look at it and I would say to myself, how grateful I am that I'm walking here and I could see this today. And believe me, intentionally, I do this every single day if I'm on the island. And that has helped me a lot to go back to the office again and do what I do best. So this is the whole purpose of this exercise, and I hope that helped all of you. I actually, at this moment, I want to encourage all the participants, keep the chat box active. So you hear good things from us, things that you don't agree, you can share it, no problem. And also you can encourage, bring in some questions to ourselves, and feel free to post your answers also there. I'm very grateful that Muhammad mentioned a question here and also a couple of points. I would like to, perhaps I would like, Leash to answer this question. I'll read the question. So, Muhammad said, what are the ways to accept any situation? How could anyone accept a situation where he or she lost the job and business, for example? And Muhammad also wrote a comment, the only strategy that I know that he refers to, that he knows, is to be content with what we have and whatever the situation there might be. And the contentment is only will come through spirituality, at least for himself. And I totally agree with that. And it links with what you mentioned earlier. Is there any other point you want to add on to this, Lish?
Thank you so much for the question. So how can you accept the situation? The one thing that I would suggest is like knowing that it's not only you, or it's not because of your fault or because of what you did. It's happening all around. So there are like a lot of external factors which you couldn't actually control. So it's beyond your control, where you couldn't actually hold on to that. So like letting it go and understanding that it didn't happen because of a decision that you made, or it didn't happen because of what you did, but it was more into an external factor, and it could be a way for you to actually think about like what you were doing. Was it the correct job for you, or is there any opportunities that you want further in your life? Could this be an opportunity in disguise for you to actually move on forward and be stronger when you start back, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. And I think that kind of enlightens the answer of Muhammad. And it's such an opportunity that we have, and every day we live through that. I think we will get into where we need to. I see there's a comment from one participant. Yal, I think she mentioned that whether the recording will be, yes, the recording will be available. We will send this to all participants joining today. I just want to read out one comment here from Mavis, and she said, I'm energetic and I'm helped. Grateful to knowing about emotions, 3 things being at work and having work to do. My health, kids, and just receive a report for my little one, and he has all distinctions, and happy to be connecting with my colleagues. So there you go. That's a great list, of things. I would like to ask this question from Shazina. So we touched base on the earlier stage about the mental health issues we have. How can individuals, family, and society contribute and support people going through mental health related problems in this situation? So how can we support each other or everyone around us? How can we do that?
So, thank you. So we can encourage to stay connected with the loved ones while practicing the physical distancing. And it is important that we support one another during this difficult time, especially if a loved one may be facing a mental health concern. So there are some useful tips where we can actually do to encourage and support people in this situation. Like, so if there is any person facing a mental health concern, we need to treat the person with respect and dignity. First of all, we need to listen to them non-judgmentally and respect the person's privacy and confidentiality. So we can offer emotional support and understanding. Also, give the person hope, that remind the loved one that with time and treatment, they will feel better and there is hope for a more positive future. And we need to provide practical help as well. So offer the person with like we can offer help with overwhelming tasks, but we need to be careful not to take over or encourage dependency. For example, we need to encourage them to be more independent and to be more content. So we can also offer information as well, because that will be an additional support. And yeah, but there are some things that we should not do as well. Like, if somebody is going through a mental health issue, we cannot just say snap out of it. Like, okay, get over it. We can't say that, because we really don't know what the other person is going through. So we can't be judgmental, like, okay, this happened because of your behavior, or we can't be judgmental towards them. We cannot use, yeah, we cannot, we should never ignore or disagree. Like, even though we can see the person is very well from the outside, that person might be going through a lot from the inside. So we can't say things like, you don't seem like that bad to me. We can't say that. That is totally discouraging. So
yeah,
these are
so
the
I think,
things.
Shazina, the key point there is giving them a moment of listening what they feel and how they feel about it, and listen attentively and making sure that we.
Yes.
I received a message. She says she wanted to ask a question. In microphone. So I will allow you to speak now. Ask the question. I think she wanted to share a question or ask something. So yeah, I just allow you to speak. You can actually on your microphone now, and you can speak. Yeah, are you there? I did receive the message you wanted to speak, and we have allowed the microphone to speak. I have allowed you to speak. Microphone should be on. Okay. Well, I'm sure she'll come back when probably. Yeah, she probably see the message. Or good. And now we'll actually go into the topic around, one more question around coping, the mindset. And I see that we are getting questions from participants, so keep them coming. We will address most of them with the time provided. So to Leash, what are the skills that can be adopted to develop fortitude and hence a coping mindset? So how would you respond to this?
Personally, fortitude is one of my favorite words because it enables us to be strong. It enables us to do what is right in the terms of a difficult situation. It actually gives us the inner toughness or the mental toughness that we need. And by saying that, I regard to what Shazina has also mentioned, someone going through a mental health issue, we can't disregard their thoughts or emotions or how they are feeling as well. But along with that, we should teach each and every individual, starting from our children, that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to have hard days. So mainly what we see even in the society is that we tend to what can I say, we tend to discipline our children, or we tend to make sure that our children grow up in a happy environment. So it's always happiness. We don't want to show any sort of sadness. We don't want to share them any bad news. So what happens is when these teenagers or when these children actually grow up, they are not used to adversities. They are not used to difficulties. So I'm sure if you follow a lot of public figures all around the world, isn't it? So we know that those who are successful, they actually come from hardship. So hardship or the sufferings actually makes us make our character, isn't it? They make us actually more successful. So one more thing is like it's about absorbing the external circumstances. Okay, this is what's happening to me. What am I going to do about it? So for example, you might be in outward, you might look very confident, you might be very out there, but then you don't know, everybody around us, we don't know how other person is feeling, their inner thoughts as well, isn't it? So in order to develop fortitude, it's about accepting your emotions, giving a check-in to your emotions once in a while. How am I feeling? So waking up, okay, today it's not a good day, I'm having these negative thoughts. What am I going to do about this negative thought? It's kind of having a deliberate effort to keep your emotions in check. Know what's happening to you internally. How are your thoughts actually making your emotions, or how is it forming your emotions? So even just getting up and saying, I can do this, I can handle this. So just one statement, just one sentence could actually change how you look around to the world, how you focus to the world, or how you see everything around you. So it's all about like having a positive thinking mind. So even though it might, like 99 things might go wrong in that one day, but there is just one thing. And also, no matter what is going around you, having that inner strength, the trust in yourself as well. So when actually Zuni was given the activity on things that make you happy. So for me, first I was like saying, okay, it's my family, it's my work. And then I realized just now, oh, wait a minute, even myself, I make myself happy. So just identifying, acknowledging your own strengths, that itself can actually give you the fortitude, give you the ability to actually face the adversities and welcome the adversities. Because throughout the adversities, throughout the difficulties, you come out so strong, you come out so wise. You are actually a different personality now because you have gone through all these life lessons. So when you have a chat with someone who has actually gone through a lot, you find that it's such a learning experience just to have a conversation with that person.
Yes, very good comment there. I think developing that, the mental resilience and the mindset, it all comes from experiencing it. And, there are definitely industry colleagues, and maybe some of you have, did experience the tsunami, back in 2004. And, God forbid if that happens again, but we never know. Natural disaster, things that we should always be ready. And I'm sure if ever that such a sort of a natural disaster happen, we'll handle it better than it was before. A pandemic like this, none of us on this call at least today or listening and viewing this never experienced it. So if we get through this and develop the mindset of how to handle it, the next one we should be able to get through. So at this moment, I would like to ask participants to go to the chat box and write down, how you're feeling now, being listening to us and understanding what we're saying and, reviewing our comments there, how you're feeling. Go to the chat box and write a comment there. Yeah. You're feeling happy. Or at least, refresh the question. If you're happy that you're on conversation with us today, go to the chat box and write yes in all capital letters. I know we have about 33 participants watching from our Facebook Live, and we have about 40 here. So on an average, we have seen 80 participants today on and off on our call. Thanks for that comments coming there. Thank you. We appreciate that. Wonderful. And and now I'd like to take a question from one of our participants. I think that was a question from Ruhi. So let me just go to that question. Any panelist can answer this. So I'll read that. what is from Ruhi, and Ruhi says, what sort of distracting activities would you recommend for the people who are having a tough time coping with the current situation? Who would like to take the question? Zuni?
Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways that we could actually divert our mind, right? For example, right here, these kinds of sessions, we are also seeing a lot of different support groups, or there are also a lot of free services that are offered by a lot of mental health professionals. Also, there are things that you can do for yourself as well. For example, read a book, watch a funny movie, something on YouTube, take a warm shower, things which are very, very simple. But usually when we are anxious or when we are going through some kind of uncertainty, we need to play with our senses. So for example, rearrange your home, play with your sight, what you see, what you hear. So listen to something that is soothing, maybe, or maybe use some candles, use something that smells nice in your home. So these kind of things also tend to distract our mind and also bring us to positivity at the same time as well. Or if you are with your family members, have a game night, have a movie night, do something like that together as a family. Or you could have a Skype session with your friends at the same time as well. So all of these things kind of keep us going. I think we just need to be more creative with how we do it, because what might distract us today might not distract us tomorrow, keep us going tomorrow. So we need to find out what are the ways that we can keep us going. So there are so many things that we can do, which we can do creatively.
And also, just one more thing to add to that. I mean, in our daily life, we need different recipes. We need different flavors. So what we usually do is the whole day we are concerned, the whole day we are anxious, the whole day we think about the failures, we think about the pandemic. So rather than that, look how children live. So they have playtime, they have circle time, they talk about their feelings so openly. So when did we stop doing that? So why can't we move on to that? Why can't we do things that we enjoy? Have some time, like for example, watching some comedy, reading some books, adding to our own knowledge, adding to our own values. So it's kind of having a mixture of everything and not just focusing on one negative thing which is happening around the world, no matter how hard or how big the one thing could be.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what works one way not works for the other, but there are many different ways. So at this stage, I would like to take a question. I'd like to take a question here from Marian Tasneem Hamid. She actually specifically won't ask this question from Shazi. How is, so Shazi, this is for you. How is one way I can address a challenged mindset of a parent who's 24/7 taking care of a differently abled child?
Yes. So it is very understandable that, I mean, even the most resilient of us, we are having a difficult time coping. So people who are most vulnerable will have a even more harder time coping through this crisis, and especially with a child who needs constant attention and constant care, it will become overwhelming. But I would like to tell the parent to take some time off. I can understand it is hard to do, but take some time for yourself and try to relax a bit. As Zuni mentioned, take a long shower, or at least for some time, just try to have a time for yourself and do something which you really enjoy doing. That will be helpful for the mind, and then it will help you relax. Of course, it is a difficult situation, so we need to find a creative way, or ask. We should not be shy to ask for help. We can ask someone to look after the child for at least 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So daily taking a break and to take care of our own selves is very important. And that would actually show a huge improvement in the mental health of the parent as well.
Yeah, In addition to that, Tasnim also mentioned that we have tried getting help for the parent, but it's difficult for them to sit and listen to someone talk. Is there any other source of help we can give them? And I think onto that, I would also encourage that Tasnim to, you can send a message to the on the chat box. You can send a private message to our panelist or us, and I'm sure our three ladies will be happy to take the lead in helping them and talk through, especially Leish and her team and Shazi and I'm sure Zuni too. So that is perhaps that will also help. I wanted to go one more question with the panelists for Zuni on the topic of gratitude. What are the sources of support and kindness that we can see in our community, and how can we further strengthen? I believe, and I think the fundamental of this question came through. If you look into the challenges we have seen in our community, we see that wherever or whenever there's a challenge, our community, we all come together, we help each other. So could you elaborate a little bit on this, and how can we celebrate that more?
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Flip. We always see, right, whenever we go through a challenging time, especially in our community, everybody comes together, right? The same thing that we have seen this time at the same time, as well at individual level, at organizational, at government level, we are seeing that there's so many random acts of kindnesses that are going around, so many initiatives that are helping financially, that are sharing resources, that are trying to find accommodation, that some people, they are even giving their homes for people to come and stay at the same time as well. So there are so many random acts of kindness that we are seeing at the same time. At the same time, we are seeing a lot of psychological support that we can get, for example, at MAHRP, at all the other service providers are giving that as well. There are so many live sessions that are focusing on mental health issues that is going around on social media at the same time as well. And like Shazi said, for us to keep going, we also need to be very, very kind to each other and to ourselves as well. So we can do this very, very easily these days, because we have like emoticons, gifs, memes that we can just share to somebody, and then that immediately brings happiness to someone. That's a very random act of kindness that we can do while you are going through something like this. We still need to be nice to kind to ourselves at the same time as well. So yeah, take care of yourself, take care of your friends, check on them as well, and also use platforms like these to be kind to each other as well. So if you look at social media these days, we'll see that there are so many stories, random stories that people are sharing how they have helped each other. So that's a very nice, wonderful thing that we are seeing as well. So yeah, keep it going.
Yeah, no, that's great point you mentioned that. I think one way to see the developing the grateful mindset is that you have to see the good things that are happening around us, and we have to learn how to appreciate them more. At this stage, I would like to take a question from Mohammed Wasim. It says, how could I motivate a negative person in this situation? Obviously, you try to do your best, but then they don't understand your point of view. So how do you go around with it? Leish, would you like to take on that question? How could I motivate a negative person in this situation?
Yeah. So if it's someone you know or someone you work with, the first thing when it comes to my mind when the question popped up, the negative person, where is this all negativity coming from? There should be some sorts of channel, some sort of reason why he or she has become a negative person. So just trying to sit with the person, explore what's going behind these negative thoughts, what's leading to these negative thoughts. It could be a past incident, it could be something, a traumatic incident, it could be his upbringing or some sort of an incident which actually made him think negatively. So one thing is not judging, and also not labeling as a negative person. He is not a bad person, he's not a negative person, it's just he's having negative thoughts. So how can you divert these negative thoughts to positivity? Is empathy, is connection, is respect, is sitting down, actively listening and trying to understand what's actually behind the negativity rather than focusing on the negative.
Yes, that's wonderful, and I'm sure that our the attendee who asked the question will be very happy about it. And there's one more question here, which comes as, I feel like we have adjusted to a new normal, that is staying home and working and studying from home. But once again, lockdown is over. We will have to go back to work. I wonder how will I resume back to that normality with Corona out there. So I suppose there is a question around still some sort of fear, whether you are not really sure that the preventive measures will be totally followed. So what's your take on this? I would like perhaps Shazi to respond to this question. You want to go back to work and this fear of the virus, how should one deal with it?
Yes, it is very true. Actually, it is happening with all of us. We are getting used to this now, and going outside and meeting with people and those kind of meetings are becoming more unusual now. So I think it will take some time when this situation gets better, and when we go back to work and when we go back to our schools, we will slowly, gradually, we will adjust to that situation as well. We are human beings. We can adjust very well. So I think it will take some time, but eventually we will.
Yes.
Inshallah, we will get out of this situation. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Lish, go ahead.
Yes, it also depends on how well the work organizations are ready to receive the workers, or the schools are ready to receive the students after the post-pandemic. So this is the time where they should come up with appropriate measures, procedures, policies, where they are actually ready by the time they come back with the cultural shock of being at home all this time. Just to add to what Shazi said.
Yeah, and if I may add just one point here to that specific question. That we hear this word, we are in this together, and I've been repeatedly sharing this message with our audiences, and I'm a firm believer in this. What that really means is that the way I behave when I go outside impacts other people, and the way they behave impacts me. So if you go to a shopping mall and the way that you behave inside the shopping mall, it does impact the behavior, does impact other people, and what other people behave impacts you. So when we say we're in this together, what it means is that, when you are supposed to go to work, for example, I gave this example and I like to repeat on it. Let's say in office, we used to share our stationaries, right? Perhaps when you come back to work, at least for the shorter term, you're not supposed to share your stationaries. So you may say, well, maybe they can't buy the new stationery. Well, I'm sure we'll have to find a way around. So if you, for example, was to borrow someone's stapler to staple papers, we are in this together means you have to, before borrowing it, you have to make sure that, just take a sanitizing wipe and just sanitize and use it. I know it's different. It's like you didn't used to do it before, but that's really what. And when you do that, you reduce the risk. So there really is no fear in that. And I think if we follow authorities' guidelines and really start doing those things, it will help us to, get through. Then I think we're almost time there, but I would like actually to take one more question here from Grace. And Grace asks a question: if the main concerns are emotions and feelings, how can I better manage both, either at work or at home? Lish, you would like to take on this?
So usually our thoughts are very tangled in our mind. It's very bottled up. Our emotions are all over the place. We are like in an emotional roller coaster. So one thing is always connecting with the platform. Like, for example, we have continuous support groups. So find a platform where you could comfortably, confidentially share your thoughts in a non-judgmental environment. And if you can't access to these services, keeping a journal, voicing out these issues, for example, when you speak about these issues, you come to realize, or you come to a realization that, okay, that's how I'm feeling, or that's what I'm actually feeling. So even if you don't have someone who would actively listen to you without judgment, if you can't share your issues, just keep a journal. Just find some way which is comfortable for you to bring out these emotions, bring out these thoughts actually out of your body and into where it's visible, either through your words, either through your writing, either through discussing with professionals. So Don't keep your emotions bottled up, because it just takes a small step of actually releasing it out for you to feel better.
Wonderful. Now we're coming almost to the end of our conversation over here, and there's a point that is from one of the participants, Ruhi, that she mentioned that sometimes it's difficult for people to reach out directly to the hotline because of the you don't want to share it too openly, and that also depends on the culture and the mindset of how often people talk about this topic. So she asked if there's any line that any email that she can send, or she can share that information. So to everyone who is listening to this call and all our viewers from Facebook, MAHRP is officially endorsing Institute for Wellness Education as our partner in terms of mental well-being and wellness support, gratitude activities, and giving this guidance. So they do have a Facebook page where you could also send a message, or you could send a message to MAHRP Facebook page, and we can divert it to them. We will soon announce a direct email that you can contact on our Facebook page, so you can reach out, because what's important to know is that this is an increasing, the risk of this is increasing. So we have to be ready to address it and bring and openly talk about it in terms of addressing it. And as one last question here, and then there's one question I would like to respond. Organizations are getting ready to resume operations, probably with revised working environment objectives and targets. This will probably have additional pressure on managers while dealing with their subordinates. How can we ensure and promote mindfulness in the new normal with the social distancing in place? I would like to ask this question again from Leash. I think it's probably like a generic question. I know you, the work you do probably perhaps can enlighten us.
Of course, along with the pressures that employees feel, we know that the superiors, they have added responsibility as well. They need to be cautious about their well-being, their work, and plus the work and well-being of their workers as well. So just to create a work environment, a post-pandemic work environment in a very supportive manner where everybody is respected, everybody can openly voice out their concern, not a judgmental environment. So trying to create a wellness approach, trying to actually change or harmonize the work environment in such a manner where people don't feel hesitant or people don't feel intimidated to come across their issues or to talk about their issues. So it could be through hiring a coach, it could be through getting expertise advice, or it could be through reading books. So just trying to find some ways where they could actually change the work environment pattern. It could be peer support groups. It could be specialized support groups from different services around the resort, around the work environment. So just trying to create this harmonized, peaceful work environment where they could come out and actually reach out and say confidently that I'm having an issue, I need help.
Yeah, thank you very much for that insights in there. And I would like to, as we're coming, almost come to the end of our session today, there is one question I personally will respond. If I could ask all the participants just to go to the chat box and, write one key point you have learned from today's session, or just share a moment of gratitude that you are on our webinar today. We are very grateful from MAHRP that many of you joined us today. Many of us are listening and viewing from our Facebook page. So thank you very much for listening to us. So you could go to the chat box, and while I respond, you can write your response there. The question asked from Muhammad, I think, of one of the participants, he said, what significance do you believe a role does faith play during this crisis? A huge role, I would say. Obviously, Maldives being 100% Muslim country, definitely all the practices need, all the good deeds and practices should be always at its best. Not just now, but it always have to be. And I remember in a conference many years ago, somebody asked me in an international conference, what's the best way to manage your time? And my response was, the days that I could do my 5 prayers on time, that helps me to actually manage my time best, right? But I also want to enlighten on the other side of it. There are many people who don't use these opportunities. And I would like to give you a little story to think about this. I had a colleague, and I will of course not mention the name, but where, and just last Ramadan, I mentioned to that colleague that, because, I see him that, is not, praying and, going to the mosque. And I had a chat with him. I said, you're this number of years old. And why, I don't see you go to the mosque, Ramadan. We don't have much work to do here. You will never get an opportunity like this in your life. And at the end of the conversation, he had tears, and he told me that no one in her life has shared such words with him. And that was the 15th of Ramadan. And since then, he has been praying every single day, because I actually wake him up and I said, well, and he's actually 37 years old. So one can imagine, I mean, we may never get this opportunity. So to answer your question, totally agree with you. Whatever the faith and belief that you have, you got to practice it wherever you are in the world. And, we must respect the views of everyone. Hence, I shared this view. And, it is important. And it's also a way of sharing the gratitude. If you're grateful of what you believe in, you will actually practice that. So just to end it, I just want to, in a sort of a 30-second remark from each of our panelists. Zuni, over to you. A closing remark.
So it's been great talking about what we love, wellness, gratitude, and I hope we have given some points for the participants that you can take away and practice within yourself and with your family members as well. And I hope that you will prioritize yourself, self-love, work on yourself, and keep it going. And keep on sharing positivity, bring in positivity within yourself. And just, if you could do one thing when you wake up in the morning, just smile. And when you close this window today, also smile, and please close it down.
Yeah, thank you. Closing remark, Lish.
Thank you, Afif. Just going back to what you said as well, with, even in Maldives, when the first community spread, it was just few days before the Ramadan, so we could see a lot of anxiousness. Even myself, I was having a bit of a panic attack because after the first death and so many issues going on. But then Ramadan came, and we can see how how positively we turned, and we actually turned to God. And whatever faith that we are in, we know that it's a deliberate, intentional time that we give for our faith. So what matters is when we're going through all of these issues, worries, concerns, give a deliberate, intentional time for yourself. So when you meditate, when you are spiritually engaged, you are taking away all of the external factors. You are just focusing on one thing. So that focus is also very, very important. So it's not just you alone in this. We are all suffering. We are all going through this issue. So don't feel ashamed. Don't feel stigmatized to reach out, affirm your emotions. You can, through this hardship, I'm sure we all are going to grow up much more stronger.
Thank you. Lish, I see that actually Yao just commented. I guess she wanted to talk to you, so I will actually pass your contact to Yao later on. Closing remark by Shalsi.
So we are constantly asked to monitor our physical health. Like, are we coughing? Do we have a fever? But at the same time, it is very important to keep an eye on our mental health. So I hope we learned something from this session. And I would like to thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, all the participants. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation today. And, having many of you join our session is always our energy and enthusiasm to do the next thing. So stay tuned for MAHRP Facebook page. We just announced yesterday we'll be doing the first virtual digital learning and development conference. We have speakers from different parts of the world, and you're going to love it. And the good news is it's going to be free. There won't be any registration fee. You just have to do a pre-registration just to make sure that you get the links for all the sessions. So we will open for registration on 10th, which is Wednesday. And from there, we'll take it forward. So once again, thank you. And, may we all be at best and maybe get strengths to get through this and deal with all the challenges ahead post-pandemic and, post the opening of our economies. So thank you very much. Once again, I'm very happy that we partnered with the Institute for Wellness Education, which is led by three of you, Zuni, Lish, and Chaz. And keep doing what you do at best. And we look forward to having more collaborations and future events together. Once again, thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.